It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutch. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford. Not as dangerous as where I am, as it's tier 4. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
So my question to you is, if there is a team that we have spoke of in the past as having maybe discipline issues, if that team is now currently on something of a losing streak and one of its star players, quote unquote, is drawing attention to himself in a totally unnecessary manner, would you, as the head coach of this team, bollock that player yourself, or would you back the leadership that exists within this team to call him to one side and say, dance on the logo one more time, dickhead, and you will not catch another pass this season?
Sports people are weird. I'm going to tell you why. Like, how that motivates other let me rephrase. How people believe that motivates other teams to play better is completely beyond my comprehension.
They've danced on our paint,
so therefore I'm going to get dead mad and play harder. No. The reason the Pittsburgh Steelers have lost their last 2 games is because at the moment they are shit. It's got nothing to do with Juju Smith-Schuster dancing. It's got something to do with Juju Smith-Schuster being unable to catch the ball and his quarterback being a corpse. I'm not having him dancing on the Cincinnati Bengals. It's not... Okay, let me go the other way, right? I'm going to give you... I'm going to go to a different sport. Liverpool are playing West Brom on the day after Boxing Day. They will turn us round. No. No, because you haven't earned the right to turn us round. Do you know who can turn us round? Everton and Manchester United. That's the list. No one else. Do you know the only team who you can possibly care about doing something on, and I'd hate me to say this, is the star in the middle of the Dallas Cowboys thing? No one even knew that someone painted something in the middle of Cincinnati's pitch. So I'm not having it's disrespectful. No. T.O. giving it the wagons. Randy Moss giving it the wagons on the star. Yes, do you know why? Because the star meant something no other team that is relevant to. It's not relevant. For me, it's like Manchester United have got an amazing ground with 75,000 fans. No one's asked if they don't kick Stretford in second half. No one's asked. Do you know what we're asked about? Liverpool kick Cop end second half. It's just the law. Get over it.
I think, let's say, for me, obviously, I play slight devil's advocate because I don't really give a toss.
No, I know you
don't.
I know you don't.
It's a ostensibly grown man dancing on paint. The problem is...
It's not ostensibly. It is a grown man on paint.
It's just one of those, when you're losing, I don't think you should be drawing that type of attention to yourself, because we've seen these weird people who play sport and follow sport will pick it up as a reason. And it was, as I say, if you've lost the last 3 games, then you come back to that core argument of you're not playing well enough to be an arsehole.
Yeah, that bit I've got no problem with. But the fact that people believe that the Cincinnati Bengals were more motivated to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers because Juju Smith-Schuster did a dance on a piece of paint that most people didn't know existed until such time as he did it, I'm not having. I'm just not having it.
Until there is a causal link between dancing on logos and being unable to run block and catch passes.
Correct. Then come back to me. You know what I mean? And then I'm all right. Then I'm all ears. Enough rant over, although we've probably got many more coming up. This week's show is actually quite fancy heavy. We've got a couple of comments, we've got to dive in on the Jets. We've got to get our excuses out the way as we both lost in our League of Records semi-finals. We will get to them. And then obviously we will do our fantasy darlings, fancy loser and team of the week for, DFS, which is now the only thing that's important in anyone's lives because fantasy's over unless you're in my touchdown dynasty league. But enough of that, Neil. Let's get on with the show. So a couple of weeks ago, we highlighted that we were 1-2 in our league of record and thought about dropping all of our players and cementing that position. We didn't do that, and we still finished first and second. Mm-hmm. If we were going to big ourselves up, which I am, I was 11-3, which is actually the joint greatest record in the history of that league. Yes, of course, we both lost, because that's how the world works in 2020. You're not allowed to have good things. I said it possibly 4 times on Sunday, and I'm going to say it again. Fuck off, Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I wasn't driving towards winning a title this year. I was building to compete next year. So anything that I did this year, at the start of the season, I'd have taken it. But ultimately, one of the performances that tipped my matchup was the form shown by Darren Waller. So the tight end position, which I love and hate in equal measure, you two can go and F yourself.
Just to give kind of where it all went wrong in mine, Ryan Tannehill, who a couple of years ago I think we mocked probably 17 weeks on the run, scored 41.2 points, while week 6 MVP Russell Let Me Cook Wilson has been reined back in and scored a massive 13 points. I somehow also have the only rookie wide receiver who isn't getting 700 points a game in Jerry Jeudy, and dancing his way to 2.5 points in his final game is Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, I say Russ hasn't cooked for a while. He has been eating. He hasn't even eaten takeout. He's been eating Weight Watchers meals for one.
What I would say is I wish the lady who defeated me, Rachel Symes, all the best of luck as she tries to prevent someone from winning their first fantasy title.
I wish no one the best of luck. I wish no one the best of luck.
Nah. Let's move on to the NFL news, Neil, because no one needs to talk about our fantasy. Was that the worst win in the history of the New York Football Jets?
No. This is what we've discussed on countless occasions with countless people who are clever and more versed in the world of the NFL than us. Players and teams do not want to tank. Front officers want to tank. So those Jets players, I mean, do you want, given your deep-seated and long-held love for Frank Gore and all members of the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, did you want Frank Gore's career potentially to end on an 0-16 team?
No, I didn't. And
No.
I don't think we should be blaming the New York Football Jets for winning.
No.
That's their job, right? We should be looking long and hard at the amount of money the Los Angeles Rams are paying Jared Goff over the next few years and think, I wish we would have spent that better somewhere else.
Yeah, that is... I mean, we all remember the Super Bowl where, Sean McVay had his kecks pulled down by Bill Belichick and Brian Flores. I will wager that what we saw on Sunday is a more humiliating loss, because the Super Bowl, more often than not, back in your day, when you were watching it by yourself and the rest of us didn't know it existed, it was a blowout. We know it was going to be a blowout. It was... Who's going to get taken behind the tool shed by the NFC champions this year? But to go into a game like that at home, I believe as well, were they at home?
It was
in SoFi, and be dismantled by a New York Jets team that I've looked on the QB School, JT O'Sullivan's YouTube channel. He did like a breakdown of Sam Darnold's plays. They left points on the field because Sam Darnold cannot execute the staple concept of their offense. So they, in the words of Denny Green, let the Rams off the hook, and still the Rams couldn't beat them. It's inexcusable. Now, we can all go on, and everyone's had their say in the last few days about Carson Wentz. If there were deep-seated doubts in the back of the Eagles' minds about Carson Wentz, and I don't think there were, they at least took something of a protective stance by drafting Jalen Hurts. What's the Rams' backup plan to Jared Goff? some more Jared Goff.
The thing is, where I think that slightly differs, and I agree with you, by the way, although it sounds like the backup plan that the Eagles put into place is one of the reasons that Carson Wentz has sucked this year, but that's a different conversation. I'm not getting into psychoanalyzing crazy ginger godbotherers. What I will say is that what Sean McVay believes is very much what Kyle Shanahan believes, is that you all believe that a franchise quarterback wins games. I believe that offensive geniuses like me win games. So, I've managed to get to Super Bowls with, Jared Goff or Matt Ryan. I've won lots of games with Kirk Cousins. I have won games with Jimmy Garoppolo. I've got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. So you can say I need a backup plan for Jared Goff. My question is, why did someone pay him loads of money when I could have got street free agent off the street and been good? Because and I know that on Monday, when you read that Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers had picked up Josh Rosen off the Arizona practice squad, you thought it's going to be awesome when he's good for the 49ers next year.
No, it's going to be hilarious. Well, it is. I mean, it's now going to be a case of, this is your last chance, Josh. You've gone from a toxic situation in Arizona, a situation where you weren't exactly set up to succeed in Miami, but then you've sat behind Tom Brady in
Tampa,
a Bruce
I said Arizona, I meant Tampa, sorry.
In a Bruce Arians system. So you've gone from Bruce Arians to Kyle Shanahan, two noted people who do good work with quarterbacks. You do nothing with the 49ers, you are done, my friend. As then it doesn't then become he's been unlucky. It's now a case of he's not prepared to, take the chance. He's not prepared to put in the extra work. Or maybe it's just the fact that he's shit.
I think if you can't be good in a Kyle Shanahan system, that's probably it for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there you go. If I come back to the Jets, because it's fun, we don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to be good. We don't know that.
No.
But we believe there's a chance. It's a very Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin situation in the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields debate. As in, Luck is probably generational. Robert Griffin was scheme. And then he got injured and, became weird. But if we forget that he was excellent in his first year, or we don't. But then again, that was Kyle Shanahan, and we come back to the same debate we're just having. But the New York Football Jets fans, the year you were the number one pick last time, Peyton Manning decided he wanted to go back to school. That was mean. And this time you backed into a win, and now there's a possibility that you pick the right quarterback and it goes really well. But given your franchise's penchant for not doing that forever, I'm going to say you're probably going to regret winning that game.
Do you think... I'm going to set the over and under, by the way, on 10.5 days after whatever we get for a scouting combine this year, before the first news stories start coming out of Jaguars may consider another player other than Trevor Lawrence for the first overall pick. Or do you think it'll be... So 10.5 days after the last day of the combine, what do you think?
Under. I'll take under. What I would say is right now the Jacksonville Jaguars have the first pick and about 15 draft picks. Now, they could easily screw all this up because most teams do. However, if I was a GM, that's where I'd want to be because I'd get a chance to screw up and it'd be awesome. Let's move on, Neil. Let's talk fantasy and fantasy 2020 turkeys. Me and Neil got to semi-finals and lost. So, we're just first losers, really. But what I wanted to look at was numerous positions where we drafted people high and it just didn't work out. There's a number of reasons for that. Injury or pooness, or both. So let's look at that and let's start with the quarterbacks. And I guess this one's injury, and I say I guess, it is almost undoubtedly injury. as he's still 28th in points per game, and that's ADP rank of 3, Dak Prescott. Again, I stress, he is 28th in points for quarterbacks, and he hasn't played in 11 weeks. Right now, he is still the leading passer on the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. I mean, he was going to be the classic, won't get considered for MVP because his team's crap. Basically, he was going to be what Deshaun Watson is this year. Because the numbers he was putting up, the start he'd got off to, he didn't have to do anything out of this worldly to break every conceivable passing record. But as I say, if he was seen as a risk, as the third quarterback off, because everyone knew it was going to be Mahomes or Jackson in one order or another. And then would it be Prescott? Would it be Russell Wilson? Was it worth moving up to grab one of them, or waiting and getting someone a bit later? And as it's proven, it was actually worthwhile hanging around until 8 or 9 other quarterbacks had gone, and then you can get Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen.
Let's be honest, though, no one's picking Josh Allen. No one thought, you know what I'll do? I'll wait for Josh Allen, because Josh Allen's going to get me 1 billion points, because Josh Allen's going to increase his completion percentage by about 20 points.
No, but I think the people who were taking Josh Allen were going to take him on the back of he runs. And if you look at the modern quarterback, I mean, I think if this season and the last few years have taught us anything, it's if you're a quarterback prospect and you do not look like you could offer a ceiling of about 30 yards rushing per game, you're not making it. Mm. Because, I mean, you look at how consistent Phillip Rivers has been over the last 5 or 6 weeks. He can't even crack the top 10 in terms of fantasy points because he doesn't run. So he's getting 240 and 2 every week, and he's coming in at like QB 12. So Josh Allen has actually flipped it because he hasn't run as much as people would have thought, but he's increased his efficiency with the passing. So Kyler Murray, as we know, is the QB 2 because he runs and he passes. Patrick Mahomes isn't what you'd call a running quarterback, but he runs enough. You look at the people who've disappointed, it's because they haven't really performed as runners. I mean, Cam Newton was the 14th quarterback taken by the start of the season. He's currently the quarterback 20 because he can't throw touchdowns. So he'd be a lot lower.
He can't throw.
He can't throw. Yeah, it's horrible. But you look at the others. I mean, Matt Stafford is quarterback 15. Matt Ryan is the quarterback 12. Matt Ryan is another one, quarterback 12. If you drafted Matt Ryan, when have you thought, and got out in this week?
Can I give you a stat about Matthew Stafford and rushing? Matthew Stafford has started 166 games in his NFL career. He has been accompanied by a 100-yard rusher in 11 of them.
Phenomenal.
11. Get that man out of that city immediately.
Well, I hope he doesn't get the same injury that Kenny Golladay has. Injury.
Neil, let's move on to running backs because I don't want to talk about Carson Wentz anymore because we do it at least 3 times a week.
Being sick of the sight of a place is an injury nowadays.
Touche. CMC, first with a bullet. Number 1 in our hearts. 50th overall in PPR. And not playing again this week, which I, for one, am ecstatic about.
Yeah. But as we point out, geniuses on Twitter pointed out in conversation with Rich Rebar of Sharp Football, CMC was the Iron Man of football. All those touches, every snap, every down, never missing any time. Then he gets paid and all of a sudden has nagging injury after nagging injury. It's not coincidence. You, sir, are bellend.
Hey, mate. I know you picked CMC in your 47 in Dynasty Leagues because, you've got no girlfriend and you live in your mum's basement. But it's no need to take the fact that he's got injured out on him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm sure you'll enjoy turkey in your microwave oven with your mum. That's fine. But don't take it out on CMC, you pleb.
Yeah, that's the type of person who tweets at fancy football players.
Yeah.
if you could catch a pass, mate, you still wouldn't be 100 times the athlete I am. You look at the main running backs who have not performed. A lot of them, it's injury. You actually have to go all the way down to someone like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think was the running back 5 in ADP.
But
he's the running back 15.
The Clyde Edwards-Helaire one is interesting, though, because there was no actual scientific evidence to suggest he was going to be able to run loads in the NFL. He just was going to the Chiefs. And the thing is, and, you know, Neil, we're wrong a lot, but by Jove, when we're right, do we talk about it? Who is his head coach?
It's Andy Reid.
Andy Reid does not give a flying F about your fantasy team, and B, cares not for running backs. Do you know how I know that? Because Neil, from 2001 till about 2010, screamed in my ear every Sunday, run the damn effing ball, Andy.
Yeah, not all the time, just enough to keep running backs interested. Now, of course, I've learned that the running backs don't deserve to be kept interested. And if you're going to pass the ball all the time, as long as it is tethered to all-world quarterbacks, by all means do it. It's what Josh Allen and the Bills have done. You know, a lot of people would have thought, oh, I want a running back on the Bills because if their offense is good, all that rushing yards. No, Brian Dable has said, I'm not running the ball. Get out of here. If I want to run the ball, I'll use the quarterback. So, I say he's injured now, but he hasn't really been all season. Then, of course, we have the man who was the third running back taken, and is currently, again, this is a shock, is the running back 8 in PPR. When has Ezekiel Elliott helped anyone this year? I'll tell you when. Last week by not playing, because all those people who've been stashing Tony Pollard can finally start him. That's when Ezekiel Elliott helped you.
I know. I know. We have issues with Mike Lombardi, many of them, and that's fine. But he has a great statement. Right? This team is only 2 injuries away from being good. In theory, what he's saying is, if only Zeke got injured and we can play our better running back, we'd be a better team. Oh, look, we were. It's like I picked Joe Mixon in our League of Record, and he's been injured all the time, and I didn't pick him high or anything like that. But you just I flipping hate running backs. I never get running back right. Finally thought this year I've got it right. Alvin Kamara. No, because then Drew Brees gets injured and they go to Taysom Hill. So you're like, yes, get in. They'll use Alvin Kamara more. No, they won't. They'll use him less. Actually, they'll then not only get rid of Drew Brees, they'll remove Alvin Kamara from the scene and get Latavius Murray to run all the yards. Fuck off, Sean. What are you doing? You overgrown... really annoys me.
One of the ones for me, looking back, I said, he's been slightly affected by injury, but Mark Ingram was the 23rd running back taken in the summer. What did people think they were going to get from Mark Ingram?
Yeah, but where were all of those lads taken, though? Because it's, I'm sure John Harbaugh picked Mark Ingram 23, because he sure as hell didn't pick J.K. Dobbins, who he's took until week 15 to actually use correctly.
You've got this little run here. Le'Veon Bell went 20. That was he's going to get all the carries on a bad offense anyway. Didn't happen. Then
he was on a bad offense.
Raheem Mostert at 22. Again, you're playing with fire with a Shanahan running back. Mark Ingram at 23. Cam Akers at 24. Again, Cam Akers one of those, probably the most talented. But Sean McVay came out and went, "No, we're going to have a committee." Why didn't people believe him? I know he's an idiot and has had his pants pulled down on countless occasions here. But if he says this is one of the things we're going to do, generally I think he can be taken at his word.
No, but the problem is with that, Neil, is that's a great story, but eventually you've got to pick these lads in the committee scenario, because there isn't enough running backs who are going to get all the carries. It's like I got DeAndre Swift, and he's been good last week and 2 weeks ago, because Matt Patricia was like, "Oh, let's get Adrian Peterson in and use him all the time." No, Matt, no, use the rookie, because you've got him on a good contract for 4 years. So run the bejesus out of him. Don't sign aging carcass Adrian Peterson and use him 20 times a game. You don't need to do that. That's why you've got rookie running backs. That's why they exist.
Friend of the show, Denny Carter, has said in a recent podcast for Living the Stream, he longs to see an NFL team take a running back, wherever, first round if you must, take them, run the bejesus out of them for 4 years, be productive, get 1,000 yards, your 50 catches, and then at the end of 4 years say, thanks. Off you go.
This is Antonio Gibson at Washington, right?
Yeah.
This year, he gradually gets better, and you're like, he's a running back we can use as our number one. Should you use him for the next 3 years? And the year before, so in year 3 of his thing, you draft another one. You sit behind Antonio Gibson, you go, ooh, he's got more spark than Gibson now. And Gibson goes and signs for someone else for a bag of peanuts. And you play the next one. This isn't complicated.
Yeah. I say, running backs matter in fantasy football, but as we've shown, fantasy football is not the real world.
Wide receivers, Neil. Julio Jones was drafted 3rd. That's wrong, and he's now 39th.
Yeah, that's a bad one. I
Is
think
it as bad as Michael Thomas, who was drafted number 1 in the wide receivers and is now 85th?
Probably not.
He's had a fight with the whole of his team and has become injured twice and is now injured before the playoffs.
I think the worst one was the fact that we all overestimated what Tom Brady would do to the offense and the Bucks, because as you say, you've got Chris Godwin, who was the wide receiver 6, is the wide receiver 41, and you've got Mike Evans, who was the wide receiver 8, who's the wide receiver 18. Yeah, but that's because he kept catching 2-yard touchdowns. It's not sustainable fantasy success.
The thing is, with the top, we all assumed incorrectly that what might happen is that Bruce Arians may think, you know what, I'd like to win a Super Bowl, so I'm going to tone down my no risk it, no brisket approach and be a little bit more sensible. And therefore, Chris Godwin is a fantastic player. We were incorrect in that. And what he's decided to do is shout at Tom Brady for not being able to lob it dead far. Thanks, yeah. Bruce. He hasn't been able to do that for 3 years, mate. But cool. And anyway, I like Chris Godwin, and I'd like him to play for the football team. So I'm only going to say nice things about him. It's not Chris's fault, and he's a good guy.
I mean, other ones you've got, again, from where you were taking them, you were probably hoping for some upside. I mean, DJ Chark was the wide receiver 20 in ADP. He's the wide receiver 43. Michael Gallup was wide receiver 29. He's wide receiver 45. DJ Moore was the wide receiver 10. He's the wide receiver 24. You were hoping for a lot more. I mean, people... Put this way, it's one of these... There's a couple of players here that if you took them where you took them, you actually got them at value. Like Will Fuller was the wide receiver 28. He's the wide receiver 23. Hasn't played for 3 weeks. A.J. Brown was the wide receiver 18. He's the wide receiver 14. Brandon Cooks was the wide receiver 35. He's the wide receiver 33. Who cares? Doesn't matter.
Tight end, Neil taught me through it. This is your abode.
Well, tight end was quite clear that if you took, it was Travis Kelce was going to be first. George Kittle was going to be second, maybe first. Kittle is still the wide receiver, the tight end 20 in fantasy points. And I think he's played 3 games, if that. So the biggest one, I mean, we've seen some people here that, TJ Hawkinson was the tight end 14. He's the tight end 3. He's been functional because he's been another one. Has he helped? Has he tipped you over the edge? No. Darren Waller probably has a couple of weeks. He was the tight end 5. He's tight end 2. The biggest one was tight end 4 was Zach Ertz, who's the tight end 35.
I assume he's only 35 because only 36 tight ends have played this year.
Possibly, although actually no, there's been a lot of no marks have come in from absolutely nowhere. By the way, I would just like to say this. I know fantasy is not reality, as I have pointed out, but Evan Ingram getting voted to the Pro Bowl and Robert Tonyan not. This is why fans should not be allowed to vote in the Pro Bowl. Because you cannot tell me, by any metric you care to name, that Robert Tonyan has been worse than Evan Ingram. No, get to...
It's ridiculous. Neil, any other notables before we move on?
Not really. I mean, I did point out in an article for Numberfire earlier this season saying that Mark Andrews might be the third tight end off the off the rack. He might be the one to follow Kittle and Kelsey, but it's not worth paying up for because of where he was going. So he was the tight end 3, and he's currently the tight end 6. Again, I'll claim that as a win for me. Noah Fant was the tight end 12. He's the tight end 11. Again, he's another one. When did you achieve this? You started well. You had 2 good weeks, and since you've had 2 decent weeks, the last couple. But no, I mean, tight end's a mess. I'm not going to say that these people are to be blamed because these are all very talented athletes. I just think the NFL needs to come to Jesus and start using these players.
Yeah, agreed. O'Neill, that's enough of the turkey variety. Let's move on to the standard format. It's Championship week, and let's try and help some people out. And let's give out your fantasy darling.
Hello, darling.
My fantasy darling this week. Now, a few weeks ago, I appeared on the Rotoviz Mailbag show, and Mike Randall, the host of said show, asked me a player who could tip the balance in Championship week in week 16. And I said, assuming Joe Mixon doesn't come back, I will take Giovanni Bernard. I stand by this because Joe Mixon is not coming back, and Giovanni Bernard is now coming off a match-winning effort in week 15, where he was the running back 10. He had 25 rush attempts for 83 yards and a touchdown, and he had 1 target for 1 reception for 14 yards and a touchdown. As we know, the Bengals are playing the Houston Texans in the Who Gives a Toss Bowl. And the Texans have not been very good against tight ends all the live long year. In the last 5 games, the Texans have allowed 31.5 PPR points to opposing backfields. That is the second most in the league in this span. In this time, I just can't find this. Where are we? Give me stats. They allowed 5.1 yards per carry, 1.2 rushing touchdown per game, 6.8 running back receptions, and 58 receiving yards to running backs. So Gio is going to be an all-purpose back for this. He's ridiculously cheap in DFS. If there are going to be some people who are going into the championship game, sans James Robinson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and maybe Gio is out there. If he is, go and pick him up. By the way, I can categorically state Doug Marrone is playing against James Robinson in the fantasy in his Super Bowl. That's why James Robinson isn't playing.
But the best thing about it is, just for me, and that Doug Marrone said he was being rested. Like they've got a big midweek game coming up in the Champions League, so they thought that they need to give him some rest because he's played a lot of games recently. What are you talking about? Again, I come back to the running back draft concept. He's a 7th round draft pick. You just keep on running him until you get the next one. It doesn't make any difference to me. But if I was a fantasy owner who'd luckily went on the waiver wire and picked James Robinson up in week 2, and now I haven't got him because he is resting, I would be quite annoyed.
Yeah, if he's resting, I don't want him in the stadium. I want him literally at home with a good book.
Yeah, agreed. Let's find out who Neil will be avoiding in Championship this week with Fancy Loser.
Well, we've touched on it, but the fantasy losers this week are the hosts of the Waxing Lyrical podcast.
We are. I feel like let's give them wah wah wah.
Yeah. I'm not going to say we looked past our opponents because it's not that type of game. Obviously, the players. It's a statistical game. It's not like we can influence it too much. Looking at my bench, there's nothing else I could have done.
No, same.
But I was sort of thinking that there'd be a lot of bitch talking in this show, and there isn't. So yeah, we're the big losers.
Let's move on to DFS because that's well cooler than standard fantasy, and let's do our daily fantasy teams of the week.
Mainz and Duts. Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Show me the money.
Quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, flex, defense and special teams. Neil, who's your quarterback?
My quarterback, playing the New York Jets, is Mr. Baker Mayfield. In his last 4 games, he has thrown 10 touchdowns to 1 interception. He has the fewest amounts of fantasy points according to DraftKings he's amassed in that 4 games is 18.42. In his last 3 games, it's been 33.4, 34.02, and 20.98. The New York Jets, terrible, despite what they did last week. They've allowed 289 passing yards per game. That's the 30th most in the NFL. It's one of those, we know what the Browns want to do. They want to run the ball, and obviously they will try to run the ball. But to run the ball, they need their offense to be facilitated, and Baker Mayfield's done an excellent job of facilitating in recent weeks. So, 6,100, I shall wake up feeling dangerous.
Is there a way Kevin Stefanski doesn't get Coach of the Year?
There are a bizarre few scenarios by which the Cleveland Browns can still not make the playoffs. If they come to pass and they do not make the playoffs, then he's not winning it.
If they win 11 games plus and don't make the playoffs, that would be the most Cleveland thing ever. I feel dirty now, I'm not going to lie. My quarterback is Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago Bears at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mitchell is reborn under Bill Lazor. Pew, 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 pew. It's like weird because what Mitchell and the offense are doing are keeping Matt Nagy and possibly Ryan Pace in a job, and actually what they're doing should get them fired because this should have happened already, and the coach stopped this from happening by bringing in Nick Foles, and the GM stopped it from happening by bringing in Nick Foles. Now, is Mitchell Trubisky any good? Probably not. Do they have a major decision to make? Well, yeah, because that 5th-year option's tasty at $25 million.
Before you declined it, though.
But that means you got to sign him to something else, right? And
he's a pending free agent, yeah.
Yeah, and the starting point is $25 million. It's 5,700 in this, and he's playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are resting players. There's no hiding. So we see, this is the difference between the Jets and the Jaguars, right? The Jets just thought the ineptitude of their coaching staff and their lack of talent would mean they wouldn't win. The Jaguars aren't taking that chance, and they're going to remove all talented players from their roster.
Mm-hmm.
So,
to rest them
for next season. So Mitchell Trubisky 5,700. Running back 1, Neil.
Running back 1, 7,700. The guy who's going to be stood next to Mitchell Trubisky for large portions of the afternoon, Mr. David Montgomery. David Montgomery turning into the second coming of Walter Payton is not something I was expecting. Does have 100 yards rushing in 3 of his last 4 games, and in his last 3 games has 5 rushing touchdowns. The Jaguars, as you say, are taking this week off and putting out the junior varsity, so 7,700. I expect he'll be in a large number of DFS teams, and he's certainly in mine.
Yeah, my running back 1, Neil. Let's play a game. What month is it, Neil?
It's December.
It is. And who are the Tennessee Titans playing this week?
The run funnel defense that is the Green Bay Packers.
9,600 and worth every goddamn penny. It's Derrick Henry. The rest of the team is a disaster area. But if you get 40 points from Derrick Henry, does it even matter?
Does anything even matter? Eat Arby's.
RB2, Neil.
RB2 is J.K. Dobbins. The Baltimore Ravens are playing the New York Giants. Dobbins has a rushing touchdown in 4 consecutive games, which is a Ravens rookie record. The Giants...
Can we just go away? Right.
Yeah.
Let's just do this now because we haven't done it yet. Do yourself a favour and get beat, right? Giants, do yourself a favour and get beat. Washington, don't do anything so stupid as not to beat the Carolina Panthers. You've done it now. So just win and cost yourself the loads of draft picks and then get beat by Seattle in the first round of the playoffs. That's okay. Like, okay, we'll finish 8-8. That okay. We didn't want to do that, but we've done it now. So just get on with it and win the games.
Yeah.
My running back 2 is Zach Moss, who we just laughed at because the Buffalo Bills refused to run. As you were saying that, I was laughing. Although, where you're incorrect is he's run it over 14 times in both of his last games. And basically, if he continues to do that and we get an actual touchdown, that'd be cool. I see this, right? And you've won the division, right? You finally put that ghost to rest. Like, you're gonna stomp on their neck, right? This is Mortal Kombat. Finish him, right? And you're Scorpion, so you're gonna get that, bring him in, and chop his head off. Like, you if you get ahead of the New England Patriots, don't stop, because you may never get this chance again. Because if you think they're going to be rubbish next year, like, I just don't believe it. Like, so take your advantage while you can, and use it wisely, Buffalo fans.
Yeah, this is the classic, the mentality of test batsmen everywhere. You can never score enough runs when you are in. So you're in, you're set, you've got your eye in, keep putting the bad ball away, rack up 50. It'll feel so good, trust me.
Wide receiver 1, Neil.
Wide receiver 1, tied to Baker Mayfield, is Jarvis Landry. He's 6,900, which is nice. Has come of age, as it were, since Odell Beckham went down. In his last 4 games, he's seen 11 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 8. Hasn't got over 62 yards in his last 3, but does have a touchdown reception in 3 of 4. And as I say, the Jets are not a very good defense and not a very good secondary. So 6,900, juice up this team.
I have also stacked here and gone with Allen Robinson, 7,700. It's a lot of money, and I've spent basically most of my money on 2 players. Allen Robinson's playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are, again, come back to the resting situation. Allen Robinson's really, really good, and I hope next year he plays for a really, really good team, or at least a team with a good quarterback. It's not much to ask.
No, but as I say, he hasn't a good quarterback since his middle year of high school. He wouldn't know what to do with one if he caught one.
Well, he gets loads of points without them, so let's see what he does if he gets a good one. Right now, the wide receiver free agent market is cool as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Right, wide receiver 2, Neil.
Is your wide receiver 2 Emmanuel Sanders?
Mine is Emmanuel Sanders.
Okay. Well, mine is Jameson Crowder and the Browns against the Jets. The Browns have not been great on defense, and they have been quite susceptible to receptions from the slot. And that's obviously where Jameson Crowder makes his bones. He's 4,500, and a nice run back with the Browns stack.
Back to me, Emmanuel Sanders, as already noted. He's playing the Minnesota Vikings. He is the only available wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints this week.
Possibly.
And the Minnesota Vikings, not great on defense. Manny Sanders, 5,200. It makes sense. Wide receiver 3, Neil.
Wide receiver 3 is Surfer Boy Mbop himself, Mr. Chad Hansen. The Bengals are playing the Houston Texans. That's who he plays for. He plays for the Texans. He's 4,400. Only had one or was it 2 receptions last week, but one of them was a massive touchdown. 2 receptions for 55 yards and a 38-yard touchdown. But he had seen at least 7 targets in his 2 games prior to that. 4,400, a cheap option at wide receiver 3.
My wide receiver 3 is Marvin Jones Jr. in Tampa Bay at the Lions. Again, comes back to the Kenny Galladay injured debate, there'll probably be a shootout. They'll need to score a lot of points in Detroit, and Marvin Jones is the best wide receiver they have, and he's 4,900.
He has stepped up actually in a big way in the absence of Kenny Galladay. It's
I think
good
he's
to see.
really, really talented. I've always thought he's really talented. To be fair, I think he's a really good player. Who's your tight end, Neil?
Tight end is Logan Thomas of the football team. Friend of the show, Matt Kelly, did say that, and I think I'm coming round to this now, is they should just keep the nickname football team.
My understanding is that there's a possibility it will do, or they're going to go FC.
Well,
they're going to go football club.
Yeah, as most people have said FU about Washington over the years, that's a plus. Logan Thomas has been good this year.
Yes.
I say it helped that Dwayne Haskins peppered him with targets against Seattle. 13 receptions on 15 targets for 101 yards. The Panthers are just, you know what I mean? They're just a weird middle of the road outfit in all things. They're 18.
But they've done so well
yards.
that they're going to fire their GM and give the coach all the power.
Well, it's Marty Herney just needs to be reunited with both Ron Rivera and Washington, where he actually got his start in pro football. I only realised this today, reading in The Athletic. So 4,900. I'm not sure who's going to play quarterback for Washington, whether it is the comeback player of the year himself, or whether it's the fellow who's been making it rain / having naked women at his girlfriend's birthday party. So whoever, I'll go with Logan Thomas, 4,900.
Tell you what, I never tire of male people within the Washington franchise having allegations of a sexual nature towards women and treating them like dirt. I will never, ever tire of that. F you, owner. F you, Haskins. Why are you on my team? Both of you, why do you exist? My tight end is Noah Fant. Denver Broncos at the Los Angeles Chargers. Fant back, fit, and seemingly one of the only people who Drew Lock is allowed to pass to. He certainly isn't allowed to pass to Jerry Jeudy. He's 4,800, and as Neil said, Fant has weirdly been high in scoring points, considering you haven't noticed him do anything all season. Flex, Neil?
Flex is Gio Bernard, 4,800. League winner himself.
My flex is Sammy Watkins, Atlanta at KC.
Why?
I do this at least once a year, and I do this at least once a year, right?
Yeah, it's usually in some kind of Super Bowl DFS, but
yeah. But this year, but I want some part of the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Atlanta Falcons, and this is all I could do. So I picked Sammy Watkins. He's had 8 targets the last 2 weeks, so screw you, they're actually looking at him. And he's 5,000, so sure. If
you're going a bit further down, no. I'd say there's a cheaper way to get a piece of the offense. If you just scrolled a bit further down, you could have got Andy Reid's face mask, which is about as much use in DFS as Sammy Watkins.
Yes. Defense and special teams, Neil.
Defensive special teams is the Baltimore Ravens. They're playing the New York Giants. The Ravens defense kicked the living crap out of Gardner Minshew last week. Yannick Ngakoue, who would have thought he was going to have a big game against the Jaguars, colour me shocked. I don't know who's playing quarterback for the Giants, whether it's Daniel Jones or Colt McCoy, but I don't think they're going to have enough for him. There's going to be a few turnovers, maybe a defensive touchdown. 4,000. Go Ravens.
My defense is $1,600 less than yours, and it's the Dallas Cowboys against the Philadelphia Eagles.
There appears to be a pattern here. You did this last week as well.
I did this last week, yeah. Like Jalen Hurts is really good, and I look forward to you having 2 quarterbacks who you're paying $100 million to on your roster.
Best of luck with that.
It's not happening, I know, because somehow you're going to... Like 3 weeks ago, I was told that Carson Wentz's contract could not be moved. It was impossible. 2 weeks into Jalen Hurts, and every podcast I listen to is GMs are telling me how they can move the Carson Wentz contract. Like, I'm not sure how another player being good makes that contract movable, but hey, there you go. He is sacked quite a lot, and there will be some regression, just naturally. And he runs, so there's chances of fumbles. So 2,400. I didn't have any money left.
Bold.
Neil, let's recap. Who's quarterback?
Baker Mayfield.
I've got Mitchell Trubisky, running back, 1.
David Payton. David Montgomery.
Payton, yeah. I've got December Henry, running back 2.
J.K. Dobbins.
I've got Zach Moss, wide receiver 1.
Jarvis Landry.
Got Allen Robinson, wide receiver 2.
Jameson Crowder.
Got Manny Sanders, wide receiver 3.
Bob Cheld Hansen.
By the way, I was going to let the first one slide. You've done it again. That is one for the kids right there. A wide receiver 3 for me is Marvin Jones Jr. Tight end.
Logan Thomas.
Got Noah Fant. Flex.
And speaking of one for the kids, if you look at Gio Bernard's headshot on DraftKings, that is a moustache that Walter Payton would have been proud of. Giovanni Bernard.
I've got Sammy Watkins in my yearly use of him. And defence and special teams.
The Ravens of Baltimore.
I've got the America's team, Dallas Cowboys. Neil, that is it for the show. Christmas Eve tomorrow. Games throughout the weekend. But where can people catch you before we're back again?
Catch me on Twitter at endupton13. Would like to say I would like to pay tribute to friend of the show Josh Norris, who is leaving Rotoworld at the end of the season after 8 years with NBC, and there don't think he's announced where he's going yet, but it's a crying shame because he is one of the Rotoworld family. And I say it will be tragic the first time I hear a Rotoworld podcast not end with the words "up the villa." So wherever he goes, he will be successful, and hopefully, if he's got a bit of time in his hand, he might come back and chat with us at some point during the off season.
Fantastic, totally agree. I am at Mainzy7. Come by me at waxing_lyrical. We wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays, and we'll be back next week. These top guys are out.